Jumbo, and Caribou, thank you for another view. Your support is appreciated. If you're new to the channel, I'm Deja Toniel Clyburn, but everyone calls me Tony. I've been living and working in Kenya as a new tourpreneur and travel vlogger. I love sharing my adventures and experiences with you from my base in Kintagela. Welcome to 2022. We've made it, guys. Because funding is low, I will not be exploring Kenya in this episode. Instead, the first episode of the new year will be titled Mzungu Makes Sukuma. Let me break it down for the queens and kings who have never visited East Africa and don't know Kiswahili. Not that I am a Swahili speaking expert, even after 22 years of on and off living in Kenya. Mzungu is a Bantu word that means wanderer, originally pertaining to the spirits, but now the term is predominantly used in Swahili speaking nations to refer to white people and dating back to the 18th century. I don't get called a Mzungu much because of my skin color. I'm often presumed to be Kenyan until I open my mouth. Then I get the stares and shouts of Mzungu, Mzungu. Now that Mzungu has been covered, let me explain the dish of the day. Skuma wiki, which will be served with ugali and beef stew. Skuma wiki is a staple dish in many East African countries. Made with collard greens, known as skuma, it's normally cooked with onions and spices, but I include tomatoes and sugar. The literal translation of the phrase "skuma wiki" is to push the weak. It is a vegetable that is generally affordable and available year-round in the country. Ugali is a type of stiff maize flour made in East Africa, also called fufu in West African countries. Leftover ugali can also be eaten with tea the following morning. Ugali is relatively inexpensive and thus easily accessible, combined with stews to make a filling meal. Beef stew makes every Kenyan dinner perfect. The meat is always soft and the flavors are sweet and spicy, filled with market fresh products. Even though it takes a while to make, it's worth the wait. As a favorite delicacy, Kenyans never miss a beef stew occasion. Today, Joseph and I will be heading to Kintagela Town to purchase fresh ingredients for the dinner tonight. Since 2017, there has been a strict plastic bag ban, with heavy penalties for those who ignore it. Because of the ban, bags are not given with purchases. So I'm bringing 2 bags from previous shopping excursions. We are also carrying an empty 20-liter bottle to be refilled. Our first stop in Kintagela town is Nivis, located on the Manga Road in the Kintagela Mall. It is the only supermarket in town that sells international items, but today I am here for fresh cut beef and cooking oil. Back on the bike and our next stop, the city market, which is behind the main bus stage and across from the police station. The market has vendors who set up shop outside the market as well as vendors who rent stalls inside the market. I normally come to Miss Judy to get my tomatoes and onions, and today is no exception. Now it's off to find some fresh skuma and a head of garlic for the beef stew. Last stop is to refill our drinking water at Jibu. I cook with the water from the tap, but we still drink bottled water, and this place allows me to refill my 20-liter bottle for only 250 shillings. That is less than $2.50. I have become a professional backseat motorbike rider with 20 liters strapped to the back of the bike and me carrying 2 bags. We are on our way back home. I am hoping that Joseph's wife, Lillian, is at the house so she can cut the skooma for me. I suck at cutting skooma wiki, and once we're back at the house, you'll see why. Back at the house, and to my luck, Lillian is still there. I hand her over the skooma wiki to wash and cut. It's a process, and if I was to cut the skooma, it would take at least an hour with a chopping board. But Lillian can cut 5 bunches in less than 10 minutes with no cutting board. I don't know about you lot, but I am always amazed with how Kenyan women do this. While Lillian cuts the skooma, I will begin to prepare the other vegetables. I know everyone does not do this, but I cut the black parts off the tomatoes. I'm chopping 4 tomatoes for the skooma and 4 tomatoes for the beef stew. Set them aside and now off to the onions. I have a trick to cutting onions without crying. Cut off the first layer of the onion, then cut it in half and place them face down in water. I will slice 2 onions for the skooma and chop 2 onions for the stew. Since the stew will take longer to cook, I am going to start with the beef. First, I start by putting the beef in a pot with water. I'm going to boil it over high heat for about 10 minutes. Then place the pot on the back burner on medium-low heat. Let that simmer for another 10 minutes. While that is cooking, I will chop the dania that I brought from the market earlier. Dania is what coriander is called in Kenya, and it is almost always used in stews. Now that the meat has simmered for 20 minutes, I will pour the liquid and beef from the pot and save it later to drain. I will now brown the onions in oil and 2 beef cubes, stirring until translucent, then adding the tomatoes with 2 tablespoons of Royco. I like to think this is Kenya's version of Sazun that is overly used in America, especially in Hispanic and African American households. I'm going to let the mixture cook until the tomatoes have softened before adding the beef. The reserved soup is then added to the beef stew with salt, black pepper, curry powder, Worcestershire sauce, and the dania. Stirring once again, then cover. I'm going to let this simmer on the back burner and start the skooma that Lillian has already cut for me. Thanks, Lee. This pot is called a sufuria, which is a Swahili word to describe this flat-based, deep-sided, handleless cooking pot. It is the only type of pot I use in Kenya. I'm going to heat the oil in this sufuria. When the oil is hot, I add the onions and 2 beef cubes and let it cook until the onions are translucent. Then add in the tomatoes and 2 tablespoons of Royco. Cooking the mixture like the stew until the tomatoes have softened. Once the tomatoes are nice and soft, I add the greens a handful at a time, stirring to coat them with onions, tomatoes, and oil. After adding all the greens to the sufuria, I sprinkle the vegetables with salt, more Royco, Worcestershire sauce, and my secret ingredient, sugar. It should be a liquid base forming in the pot, but if it's not, add a little bit of water and cover the pot, turning the heat down to medium. I'm going to let this cook for about 20 minutes or until the greens are tender to taste. The beef stew is now done and tender, so I am taking it off the heat and moving the skooma to the back burner so I can start the ugali. Ugali is easy to make but includes a lot of upper body strength because of the constant stirring. I'm not going to measure the water because I let my unknown Kenyan ancestors lead me, but this should be enough water. I'm going to put this on the stove to bring to a boil. While the water is boiling, I'm going to visit the pantry in my backyard to grab 2 packets of pembe, which is maize meal. The water is at a good boil, but before I add the maize meal, I will add 2 tablespoons of blue band, which is butter in Kenya, and a sprinkle of salt. Now I can add the maize meal, using a mwiko to stir the water and prevent lumps, adding more maize meal to decide the consistency I want for the ugali. This is what I meant by ugali includes a lot of upper body strength. You must keep stirring until the maize meal is well cooked. Once it is done, just tip it out onto the lid and the ugali should hold its shape like this. And like that, the meal is done. This meal is traditionally meant to be eaten with your hands by rolling a lump of the ugali into a ball with your hands. Making a depression with your thumb allows the ugali to be used to scoop and wrapping it around pieces of beef and skooma to pick them up in the same way that flatbread is used in Middle Eastern countries. Well, thank you for joining my boys and I for dinner. I hope you enjoyed the preparation and explanation of Kenya's staple dish. If you're new here and haven't already subscribed, Click the subscribe button. I am still trying to provide content to upload daily from our tours and weekly from my experiences. It's not easy, but I am getting there, and I know you want to be notified. I still need your financial support to continue to make these videos, so consider becoming a Patreon member. Patreon members help to launch new tours and get to see videos before they premiere on YouTube. Click the Patreon link in the bottom of the About Us section on this channel, or just click the link in the banner. Are you in Nairobi or plan to be in the Nairobi area? Then come spend a day with me on one of our Dusty South tours. Our website has full descriptions on what to expect on our distinctive excursions outside of the city. The link is also in the bottom of the About Us section, or just click the link in the banner.